Hey guys, and welcome to this new tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the ketogenic diet. I have to admit it was kind of difficult to decide what to tell you because there is so much to say about this diet, but I will just try and let's see where we're going. So the ketogenic diet, a few key facts here, was invented in 1924. So it's a very old diet or lifestyle. And it was invented to treat epilepsy. Try to look up what epilepsy is. The main function of the ketogenic diet when it comes to epilepsy is that the keto diet basically makes the body go on starvation mode. It means that you make the body think that it's not getting anything to eat. And the doctor who invented this diet basically saw that kids who basically ate a ketogenic diet had less epilepsy problems or attacks, or I don't know how you call them. And basically it's because of the starvation mode. So it is very low carb diet, basically. Yeah, between 20 and maximum 50 grams of carbohydrates. And we know many low carb diets nowadays. Yeah, we have the South Beach diet and different types of low carb diets that are on the market and selling products and saying it's the best diet for weight loss. We're going to talk about this. The macronutrient ratio can be different. So it is a low carb diet and it is a high fat diet. So what you see here, the 70 25 5, for example, means 70% of the calories is fat, 25% protein, and 5% carbohydrates. But we also have other ratios like 60 35 and 5. It really depends. But you see that in comparison to the Mediterranean diet, for example, or even many vegan diets where we have a ratio of 50 to 60% approximately of carbohydrates, here it is the other way around. Okay, so we have 60 to 70% at least of fat. So what does that do to our body? Well, first of all, not eating enough carbohydrates, so staying between 20 and 50 grams, causes some major changes in our body. Okay, not only from the hormones point of view, but also from the metabolic point of view. So first of all, it depletes glycogen stores. So glycogen stores are the stores we have in our muscles where the body basically stores carbohydrates, or let's say carbohydrates transformed into glucose. And it stores the carbohydrates to save energy. So let's say, for example, we have an athlete, I don't know, person who is into weightlifting or any type of sports. Your body becomes more efficient to store glycogen in your muscles. Why is that good? First of all, it stores energy for the next contest or for your next training. So basically, if you have them filled up, your stores, you basically will have more energy and more power. Second of all, having a good glycogen store, or a good, let's say, metabolic state of glycogen store. What does that mean? If your body is able to store more glycogen, you make it more efficient metabolically, or from the metabolic point of view. Because instead of having glucose traveling around in your bloodstream, you can store it. Keep in mind, remember we talked about this in class, when you have glucose in your bloodstream going around for too long, it can cause problems. Yeah, we have talked about diabetes, cardiovascular issues and so on. So it is not good for your endothelial function. Yeah. So if you eat between 20 and 50 grams of carbohydrates, your glycogen stores go down because you don't have enough glucose that can be stored. So basically, you empty them. Your body, however, needs glucose to survive. So it developed a skill that is basically called gluconeogenesis, and it means that it produces glucose in another way. So basically, it starts to break down something in your body, yeah, which is usually protein. This is why many times we lose muscle if we don't have enough glucose in our body, or we don't have or eat enough carbohydrates, because the body will take protein and transform the protein into glucose. So keep in mind that metabolically speaking, using protein as energy source is not what the body wants to do. It basically, I think that to have 1 gram of glucose, we need 1.4 or 1.7, I can't remember, 1.4, 1.7 grams of protein. So first of all, it is not very cost effective. Second of all, it causes to have a lot of trash flowing inside your body, because a lot of protein breakdown will cause ammoniac and like many things going on in your body that are definitely not healthy. After this gluconeogenesis, the body switches to ketogenesis. So that means that gluconeogenesis stops and the body starts to use ketones as major energy source. It is called ketogenesis. Okay, also a new word for me here. Basically means that we have a nutritional ketosis. Yeah, so we basically have a breakdown of fats in the body. So basically the fat we have in the body and the fat we eat with our diet. And basically we switch, or we make our glucose burning machine into a fat burning machine. And this has been very interesting for scientists to study, and it of course, from the marketing point of view, it was very interesting, because burning fat for an obese person is option number 1, yeah, and goal number 1. So basically, these ketones are used for energy production by the heart, by the muscles, by the kidneys, and the brain. Remember that the brain needs between 100 and 120 grams of glucose per day to function properly. So if you don't have any glucose in your body, you will use the ketones. Yeah, it is basically a starvation mode without starvation. And people always sell this as like a new theory. It is not a new theory. Ketogenesis is a normal thing. It has always existed in human biochemistry, because it is a survival mode. Because if we can't survive without glucose, or at least we can't function properly, we need to find an alternative way, because otherwise we'll die. So this tells you that basically for living we don't actually need carbohydrates. We always talk about essential amino acids, we always talk about essential fats, remember, but we don't really have essential carbohydrates, because science doesn't really know how many carbohydrates we need per day, or if we need any. And probably this diet shows best that to survive, I'm saying to survive. Yeah, I'm not talking about thriving. I'm talking about surviving. We probably don't need carbohydrates. The ketogenic diet is the best example for this. Okay, when we switch from the normal state of like burning glucose to burning fat, we can have initial symptoms. Okay, because the body is adapting. It is a stress for the body to adapt to a completely different diet with a completely different metabolic state. So we could have nausea, vomiting, headache, fatigue, dizziness, difficulty in exercise, tolerance, and constipation. Okay, all these symptoms we can basically call the keto flu. And many people who are following the ketogenic diet experienced these symptoms at the beginning. What else can we say here? Basically, we have a clinical significance when it comes to this diet. So this diet has been studied a lot, and it seems that if we make somebody lose weight, okay, let's take a person and we give this person a 1,700 calorie diet, and while many experts always say it's about calories, as soon as you go down with your calories, you will lose weight, which is certainly true. I am a firm believer, and also science underlines that it can make a difference if you choose a specific macronutrient ratio. So this means if I have a 1,700 calorie diet and I make it a ketogenic ratio style diet like this one here, or I make it a high carb, low fat diet, it can definitely make a difference, not just in terms of health, but also in terms of weight loss. And it seems that at least for the first 6 months, we lose more weight with a high fat, low carb diet in comparison to a low fat, high carb diet for the first 6 months. After that, it seems that there is no major difference. Other than that, it seems that we have some positive outcomes when it comes to health. So if we look at this one here, this picture is taken from a study, let me see here, published in 2017, Effects of Ketogenic Diets on Cardiovascular Risk Factors, Evidence from Animal and Human Studies. We have this picture here, okay. Well, this compares rodents with humans. Let's forget about the rodents for now, and let's look at this one here. Okay, those are all markers that you can measure with simple blood work, the usual annual blood work you do. Okay, so let's forget about the first one because I don't know what it is. Okay, but with ketogenic diets, we have seen, and also many people I know have seen, that insulin levels go down, and this is logical. Yeah, you do not eat massive amount of carbohydrates again. You basically are in ketosis. You don't need that much insulin, so of course your insulin levels in your blood go down, which is a positive thing. Then we have the HbA1c. Basically that measures, let me explain. So basically with the HbA1c, you measure how your body coped with carbohydrates and glucose in terms of insulin response in the past 3 months. So whenever you do the measurement, yeah, and in your blood work you see a certain number, usually when it's above 6 or so, I think that you could be pre-diabetic, while if it's under 5 point something or around 5, you are considered normal. That means you're not insulin resistant and your cells are able to or your metabolic state is healthy and your cells are able to properly absorb glucose. If it's too high, your cells are not able to absorb glucose properly. This means, as I said before, that glucose will be circulating in your bloodstream, which is a bad thing. Yeah. So the job of insulin is to take glucose out of your bloodstream and make it flow into your cells. So keep in mind, when you eat something with a high glycemic index, for example, I don't know, sugar, white bread, white rice, whatever, like the unhealthy stuff, okay, you basically secrete more insulin because the insulin levels go up more quickly in your bloodstream. And let's say it goes from 0 to 80, okay, your body needs to secrete a certain amount of insulin to take that sugar out. It's basically almost a panic mode. Well, if you eat low glycemic index carbohydrates like whole wheat stuff or beans or whatever, and you go from 0 to 20, for example, or 30, okay, so you need less insulin, which is a positive thing, and you can measure the past 3 months of these responses in your HbA1c. So you could try to measure that. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so fasting glucose goes down. Okay, so fasting glucose is the period of time where you do not eat anything. Many obese people or many people on an unhealthy diet don't just have high glucose levels when they eat, which is normal that it goes up, okay, but they also have a high fasting glucose, okay. When you do your blood work in the morning, yeah, they measure your fasting glucose, and usually it should be between 80 and 90 from what I know. If it's too high, usually they measure your HbA1c and your insulin levels too. They check all the three to see if you are diabetic or pre-diabetic. So keep an eye on that. Then we have total cholesterol. Okay, so when you eat less carbohydrates, it seems that your total cholesterol goes down. Why is that happening? I think that a personal opinion here, it really depends on the person because from many studies we have seen that certain phenotypes, so that means people with certain genetics, keep in mind that everybody around the world has different genetics according to where you're coming from, and according to that your diet needs to be slightly adapted. So for many people who already suffer from high cholesterol, they basically by eating lots of carbohydrates, they stimulate the liver to produce even more, and this is a problem. I'm not very sure about saying that ketogenic diet makes your total cholesterol go down, because in my opinion, and well, it's not just an opinion, in the research I have done in the past years, I have seen that for many people the ketogenic diet made the total cholesterol go up, and also LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, to go up. Okay, which is not always a bad thing when it comes to ketogenic diet. Keep in mind that many things they have told us about cholesterol are, it's not that they're not true, but they can be partially true for some people. If you have high cholesterol, but you have high cholesterol, you have a high LDL cholesterol, but you also have a high HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol overall, okay? But you have low triglycerides, you're still good, even if your cholesterol has a so-called star in your blood work results. Okay, so it always depends, because it depends if your LDL cholesterol is oxidized or not oxidized. Okay, let me explain this. Maybe it was a bit complicated. We have a cholesterol value called total cholesterol, and then we have LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterol. So HDL and LDL makes total cholesterol, the both together. Then we have the VLDL and so on. Okay, but let's take it simple. Most of your total cholesterol level is made up by LDL and HDL. So LDL is considered the bad one, even if not all LDL cholesterol is bad. There is like, I think, 8 subfractions of LDL cholesterol. We have the big and fluffy LDL cholesterol, and then we have the small atherogenic LDL cholesterol. You want to have the big and fluffy one. Okay, and it seems that eating lots of carbohydrates causes you to have less fluffy one, big and fluffy one. This is why a ketogenic diet can work for some people, because it, through not stimulating the small LDL cholesterol fractions, and by stimulating the big and fluffy LDL cholesterol fractions, you have a positive outcome. The big and fluffy ones, they don't stick to your endothelial artery walls, while the small particles do. And the HDL cholesterol is basically the overall, not all HDL is good, but let's call it good, okay, is the one that basically cleans the arteries out and takes the LDL cholesterol back to your liver. Okay, this was long, yeah. And the ketogenic diet also makes your triglycerides go down. Triglycerides are not only stimulated by the fat in your diet, but many times by the carbohydrates you eat in your diet. If they're high, it's not good, because it makes you might have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So keep in mind when you measure or when you go and do your blood work, you might have high total cholesterol, but if your triglycerides are low and HDL is high, you still might be safe. It depends on the ratio. There's different ratios. Some people measure the HDL to triglyceride ratio, and others the HDL to LDL. So let's say if you have an LDL of a certain number, usually it should be between around 70 or maybe a bit more. You should have at least 1/3 or 2/3 of HDL cholesterol to be able to clean it out. But let's not overcomplicate things, okay? Let's go back to this. What does this mean, all of the things I just said? We might have better outcomes when it comes to type 2 diabetes control. You control your sugar. Keep in mind, people with type 2 diabetes have a higher rate of heart disease too. So if it makes your HDL go up and your LDL go down and your total cholesterol go down, it might have even more positive outcomes. Plus, having control over your blood sugar is essential and vital for type 2 diabetes. It seems that it might be able for the treatment or co-treatment of certain cancers. Pay attention. Many people say if you have cancer eats sugar. So if you eat glucose, you might die because your cancer might be able to grow. It is partially true, but cancer can also take energy from the fat, so some way it will survive, okay? Other than that, in terms of cancer, of course, if you are obese and you're insulin resistant, and you have a higher risk of getting cancer. However, we have also seen positive outcomes when it comes to Alzheimer, Parkinson, multiple sclerosis. So with these diseases, it seems that we might have better outcomes, or let's say a slower development of the disease. I didn't read that much about this, but I've heard this multiple times. I've read this in a study yesterday. Don't ask me how it works. I might look into that if you have questions. Cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood glucose, we talked about this. Okay, many people claim that they have increased energy levels, better cognitive function, and less hunger. It is definitely true for many people, so it works for some people. The diet definitely does not cause you to be hungry, which is a positive thing, and it makes you more compliant to a diet, which is factor number one if you want to follow one. Cognitive function, for sure, might be absolutely increased energy levels, depending always on the diet you followed before. Many people who claim things like these had a crappy diet before. Of course, at some point they eat healthier. No matter what diet they follow, they feel better. So I'm always a little critical when I read about this. So it might be some marketing strategy. On the other side, we have only short-term studies. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. I don't know what happens or will happen to a person who follows a ketogenic diet for 20 years, 30 years. We don't know. I don't know. We'll see. And it might cause nutritional deficiencies depending on who follows the diet. Okay, if you're prone to have deficiencies in certain minerals and vitamins, it could have a worse outcome. Or if you're not able to plan your diet properly. So there's also many people who follow ketogenic diet who are not able to follow a proper diet. Okay, so they're missing out on lots of minerals and vitamins. And then people with pre-existing health issues might have problems. I've read about kidney issues, liver issues, and so on. But we're talking about people with pre-existing health issues. For healthy people, it might not be a problem. You can read about this all over the place if you go to NCBI. It's the PubMed page I showed you. Okay, you have the metabolic effects, Boone or Bain ketogenic diet. Okay, so different studies. Okay, what do I personally think about this diet? I think that for people with some health issues, it can be a good diet. Okay, so if I had epilepsy, or if I had, I don't know, even for people with autoimmune diseases, it might work. It might work for, so people with certain health issues or problems, definitely. For the normal person, probably I would not choose such an extreme diet. Probably not. I've recently read some other studies who were actually criticizing the energy levels and the increased energy levels and the well-being. It seems that ketogenic diet, from the metabolic point of view and from the point of view of the macronutrients, it causes inflammation in your body. It seems so. I've read studies, but also other studies say that it lowers inflammation. So it really depends what you're reading. But in case of higher inflammation, it seems that it basically, inflammation causes reactions in your body, and your body is basically releasing cortisol. Okay, so that makes you feel good. Okay, so many studies also say that it is a false well-being. Okay, which might cause future damage. Other than that, what do I personally think? Probably I wouldn't follow it for that long. I have seen studies for sick people, as I said, so for sick people or people with pre-existing health issues. It can be a protocol to use for a certain period of time, I guess. For a normal person, I probably would not follow something like that. Okay, if you're perfectly healthy and you don't have any health issue, I would probably choose a different diet. In terms of carbohydrates, I think that if we think about the ketosis is a state in your body that should, I mean, it is a natural state, a reaction to when food is not there. So I can imagine that it can be stressful for the body in a certain way. And I think about the fact, if I eat more than 50 grams of carbohydrates and my body goes out of ketosis immediately, there might be a reason. So maybe he prefers the other metabolic state, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. On the other side, you might have to cut out fruit, which I personally don't like. And keep in mind, your body will take 2 or 3 weeks to adapt. So you will have ketones the same day you begin with, okay? But to have the actual ketosis and that metabolic state, the metabolic state you want, it will take you about 2 or 3 weeks. And you can measure your state, your ketosis state, with sticks. And you basically pee on these sticks, and basically it measures the amount of ketones in your urine. But you can also do a simple blood test. Other than that, I think that many people who claim that this is the best diet, like every diet claims to be the best, I think that what we always forget when people are saying my glucose levels are better, I lost weight, my cholesterol went down, and whatever health markers are better, we are almost always talking about a low-calorie diet. And if you think about the average person eats in an unhealthy way. Almost everybody eats in an unhealthy way. Many people. If these people start to eat clean and low calorie, they will be healthier, no matter what diet they follow. Okay, so I'm always a little critical when people claim I feel the best I've ever felt. Well, I don't know, probably you were drinking and eating potato chips yesterday, and today with the ketogenic diet you feel better. Of course you will feel better. Low calorie diet always makes your blood work better. Okay, so I'm a little critical. They tried the ketogenic diet on athletes. Most athletes do not follow a ketogenic diet, but there are a few athletes that do. There's an ex-athlete called Tim Noakes. He's an Australian athlete, endurance athlete. He did marathons and so on. Okay, so. And he got diabetes at a certain age, however, that happens to many marathon runners. They're usually consuming lots of carbohydrates in sugary form, so many times like 600 grams of carbohydrates during their marathons and so on. And many times they drink like these sugary energy drinks and so on. And of course, those will cause problems. They will cause your arteries to clog up because of the insulin response, and endothelial function will get worse and so on. But he tried the ketogenic diet on some athletes, and they had a positive response. But most of the time, I have seen a positive response on endurance athletes, and not when it comes to resistance athlete. Remember the difference. Resistance training is like power, okay, weight training, sprinting and so on, and endurance is marathon, and not only marathon, or any type of running and cycling and so on. Since the energy you give your body in let's say endurance sport is slower, it seems that ketosis can give the body what it needs in a slower pace, and you have the energy you need. While if you do like a 100-meter dash, or you work out with weights, which is like short, hard, and intense, it seems that it works a little less, because you need a lot more energy in a short amount of time. Okay, this makes sense to me. Other than that, listen, there's so much more to say, and this video would become so long, probably an hour long. Um, but overall, this is what I can tell you. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add when it comes to that. And I hope it was clear. If you have questions, please let me know, and I talk to you soon. Bye, guys.